Prophet Driller, the director and producer of the Touhou 2, The Story of Eastern Wonderland NES Demake. It's been a while since I last saw you, and this is the first video back at the Hearst. You may notice things look kind of different, and that's because I finally got a teleprompter for my iPad, which is what I use to record these videos. If you already completed the Crown Tundra and Pokemon Sword and Shield, please let me take just more of your time. Before I begin, I would like to give you the answer to what the Story of Eastern Wonderland even is. The Story of Eastern Wonderland is the first shooter game in the Touhou project series. It was meant to capitalize on the amount of Danmaku that Dodonpachi had, another shooter that was popular at around the same time. But I want to mention that they both came out in the same year, 1997. It was released alongside the highly responsive prepares for the PC-98. I am extremely grateful that the game is now on Windows, but in the style of an NES game. If you wanted to play the original PC-98 version, you'll have to do so on an emulator. Even though setting up the emulator may be complicated, please give it a try. So yeah, this is the game on Windows, and we remade the entire game from scratch in GameMaker Studio 2.3. The intro is the same as last time. Usually when we do these demakes, we try the best we can to replicate the original graphics on the NES graphical hardware. But since the screen resolution is smaller than the PC-98, we are limited to the amount of colors and detail we can add to the sprites and such. Once the main menu appears, you are presented with 4 options. Normal game will start a normal game like usual, which is what I will be showcasing in this video. Extra game starts the game on the extra stage, which is unlocked from the start by the way, meaning you don't have to beat the game with all 3 shot types to get there. Sound Test opens the music room where you can listen to the game's soundtrack and such, and Exit just quits the game. Without further ado, we will start the demonstration through a normal game. The setup screen looks a little different in an effort to be more like the newer Touhou games. What we have here is Easy, Normal, Difficult, and Lunatic, but for the sake of this playthrough, I will play on Lunatic. Next up is your mode of play. Since the game runs on the same engine as Touhou Jotai, we added that mode for accessibility. Since many of Touhou Project's players are young, we do not want to overwhelm them, so adding this feature was a must. I will play on that mode anyway. Lastly is your choice of weapon. This was all you had to select in the original, and we made it last for the demake. They are the same as the original, but they have been tweaked in order to be what Touhou Jotai used. Stage 1 is pretty much the same as the original. If you saw in the trailer and the beta, the wooden planks and water were brighter. However, we had to change the colors on both of them due to complaints that the Danmaku was very difficult to see. We went back to Paint.net to alter the colors, removing all instances of the color white, as most of the Danmaku on this stage is white. We use Paint.net for all of our pixel art related jobs. One noticeable difference is the Bakebake, which are called Bakeboo in the game data, as their sprites resemble boos, plus they cover their faces when you look at them. Since this is an NES demake, we wouldn't budge to give the enemies Mario-like traits. You'll see another one once we get to the boss. As for the mid-boss in the original, nobody was visible. In the demake, Rika is now always visible. In order to stuff her inside the tank, we made her body the same proportions used in Touhou Jotai. One thing that's different in the demake is the screen does not scroll during mid-boss fights. It stops to ensure nothing else is moving. Sure, some stages in Touhou Jotai do this, but not in others. Her attacks are pretty much the same, but you'll want to pay attention to is if you played the original Story of Eastern Wonderland is the boss attacks. They work slightly differently, and that is of course for balancing reasons. We've approached the boss, and the other Mario-like trait you'll notice is Genji, Reimu's turtle companion, takes the form of an elderly Koopa Troopa. Although not depicted on screen, Genji has 4-fingered hands like most other Koopa Troopas. I always draw my human characters with 5 fingers. Another thing you'll notice is Rika's new design. In fan art, she's usually depicted in cargo shorts, but we put her in a skirt in order to be in line on how most other characters in Touhou Project are designed. In fact, when I was designing Rika's outfit, the final design apparently made her look like a character from the popular anime Girls on Panzer. Her attacks are pretty much the same in the original, but with slight alteration. We included more bullet types that weren't present in the original, but were in Touhou Jotai, though we did not include one type of bullet, that being shards. Fun fact, they were going to appear in this game, but were dropped for unknown reasons. The fight is pretty easy, even on Lunatic. Since the original version of the Story of Eastern Wonderland had less Danmaku than Dodonpachi, difficulty balancing was a key factor in making this demake. Danmaku shooters always give us a good challenge, but there are some where the difficulty is spiked even on the easier skill levels. You only had one hit before a life was lost unless you are playing Touhou Jotai or this game's included mode. Normal is the difficulty where we see most of a challenge. Every time I create a new stage, enemy, or boss in these Danmaku titles, I always playtest them on Lunatic to ensure they are working in balance. Now that we've completed our first stage, the second one has more challenges that I will introduce to you. And no, I did not compose that victory theme, but my handy Singaporean playtester did. He originally composed it in MIDI format before I transcribed it onto the Famicom Disk System sound hardware. Almost all of the enemies you'd expect from that stage are here, except for the amount of Danmaku they spew has been amped up. However, the evil eyes haven't changed. Their behavior is the same, with the same one bullet being spewed from each time they stop. Oh yes, we gave Noriko a new look. In fact, she looks like she's mimicking Rumia's outfit from Touhou 6, the embodiment of Scarlet Devil. In the original, she would spew bullets that contain the kanji character for curse. Here in the Demake, she just spews plain old yellow bullets. Not to mention, there was reportedly a bug in the beta where enemies and Danmaku would not disappear when a mid-boss appeared on screen. We fixed that bug in the final version. Again, just like Rika's mid-boss segment on the previous stage, she's pretty easy to defeat, especially when you have full power. Another thing to note is we made all bosses bigger than the main character. This was for balancing purposes and was especially true for the highly responsive to prayers Demake. In Touhou Jotai, with the exception of Frederick and Fox, nearly every boss was the same size as the player sprite. In a future Touhou Jotai game, we know we need to make the bosses bigger than the player character's sprite. We have made it to the second stage boss, Maida. She also shares the same first name with Maida Katsumoto, a character from Touhou Jotai who was originally going to appear in the game, but got relegated to a promotional character instead when we announced we were going to give the Steam version away to those who played the beta on itch.io. Unlike her, Mira Katsumoto is not a samurai, but a maid who works in her parents' maid cafe in Kozankyo. Fun fact about this boss was we spent a lot of time trying to fix a bug when loading the right sprites, as all she kept doing during her first attack was being stuck in her standing position. Her attack is slightly different. Instead of drawing a line and then shooting Danmaku, she throws the Danmaku as she does it. You will want to wait until her last attack. In order to be in line with the current boss segment setups in the modern Touhou games, Mira had to have a fourth attack. The one you're seeing right now was not present in the original. That was a new attack I came up with myself. There are a few more unique attack patterns later in the game, but the next stage will be the last one I will be showcasing in this video. As with demonstration videos, I will only do the first 3 stages to be like the shareware version of Touhou Jotai, which I'll talk about at the end of this video. Now we're on to stage 3. One thing you might notice is that there's no explosion at the start of the stage, but the different colored backgrounds are lighting up, but in a prearranged pattern of black and the color that's on screen right now. This was to stay true to the NES's graphical hardware. You will notice another notable difference once we get to the stage after defeating all these Bake. The Kedama enemies, or windmill enemies as fans refer to, take the place as one of the magic stones. They follow a pre-built path. In earlier versions of Game Maker, you could see the actual room to make building paths easier, but in the current version of Game Maker, they lost that, and this is something they need to bring back in a future version of Game Maker. Another noteworthy thing is the K-Dama now spew Danmaku at you and could make the stage potentially difficult. There's also a strange bug where certain K-Dama will remain on screen even after they reach the end of the path, and can only be resolved if you either kill it or use a bomb. The mid-boss of Stage 3 is pretty much the same. Once we get to the boss fight, a familiar face from an earlier Drill-O-Mation production should show up. The cutscene for that is pretty much the same, but with more stuff added. Now that we made to the boss phase, after this a familiar face from us should show up. If you play Touhou Jotai, you should know this character. That's right, it's Kagami Ochiai, Susumu Takajima's sidekick. If you read the dialogue, she appears to have time traveled from the future. To get an idea of what the story of Eastern Wonderland NES Demake is set in, you'll have to subtract 317 from 2004. We didn't want to follow the original Touhou project timeline for the Drill-O-Mation Danmaku universe, as we didn't want to get put into a box in terms of what we could do creatively. It also makes sense to point out that this game and the other games Drill-O-Mation developed were made in the United States instead of Japan. Despite being made in a different country, Touhou Jotai actually takes on a more modern, realistic, and science fiction approach. We also drew heavy inspiration from cinema for the game's plot, as my parents, first of all, are huge fans of American cinema. Stepping away from that, I also want to share another bug we took a long time to fix. It happens during the second attack where the Danmaku is supposed to home in on you, and for some reason the Danmaku would not move after stopping from flying. Kagami actually takes the place of one of the 5 magic stones and even operates the stones herself. We also decided to make her wear a different outfit in order to differentiate her appearances from Touhou Jotai and the Touhou Project fan games we would produce that could feature her. In Catch Hina, a Touhou Project fan game that I composed music for a game jam, Kagami wears her regular idol outfit as opposed to the one you're seeing right now. Well, looks like Reimu Hakurei just sealed my yokai-born idol girl out of existence. R.I.P. me. Since I just finished the 3rd stage, I'll have to end things here, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stage. Since this is a demonstration video and that I don't want to spoil any more of the game's plot, I can't go farther than this. You can play it all in the full game. And that about wraps up this video. Before I go, I want to tell you about the few updates to Drill-O-Mation's other projects. Firstly, if in case you noticed already, the Touhou Jotai demo is now available on Steam. The decision to do this is because we're not getting enough players to play the game and we're not meeting the player demand. So we had to do just that. The other thing is we're issuing a minor update to the highly responsive prayers NES Demake to correct a minor error in the HUD. In addition to, in order to increase the spread of Touhou Jotai, we are hosting a score attack competition for the story of Eastern Wonderland NES Demake, which will begin on November 1st and end November 30th. We want to emulate the tournaments Nintendo held for a few of their Famicom Disk System games in the late 1980s. What you'll need to do is download the game, play it, and get a high score. We recommend playing on Lunatic to ensure you get the best possible score. Once you achieve your score, you will need to post your achievement in the game's discussion board on itch.io. Make sure you screenshot the final result for proof. The top 5 will win copies of Touhou Jotai on Steam. Finally, I'm here to make an announcement that the sequel to Touhou Jotai is now in development. The story of Eastern Wonderland NES Demake was intended to test the engine for this new game. I have a strict time deadline to get the new Touhou Jotai done. How much longer can I be involved in indie game development? One of these days, Touhou Jotai will be published by Nintendo for their hardware. I'm also excited and I can't wait to get started. And there will be more new characters to satisfy players. I appreciate your support. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and more importantly, subscribe.